Welcome back to MongoDB.local New York City 2024. My name is Michael Lin. I'm a developer advocate at MongoDB, and I'm so happy you're sticking with us through this day-long series of interviews with great customers, with folks from MongoDB. And today we're going to dive into how retailers are harnessing the power of AI to revolutionize customer experiences. And to help me do that, we've got Prashant Juttukonda from MongoDB and Stephen Gatchell from BigID. So without further ado, Stephen, please introduce yourself. Let folks know who you are and what you do.
Sure, thanks. My name is Stephen Gatchell, Senior Director of Data Advisory. I work with BigID customers to understand the value of how to use the technology.
Fantastic. And Prashant, let folks know who you are.
Oh, thank you, Mike. And Prashant Juttukonda. I'm a retail principal for industry solutions team in MongoDB. 30 years into data, love data, everything about data is something that I work with. So.
Yeah. Well, I can't think of a better industry to take advantage of artificial intelligence. I mean, first it was search. I mean, there's no better place than a e-commerce app in the retail space to take advantage of search, but artificial intelligence. Tell us, Stephen, how are retailers taking advantage of that technology today?
Yeah, I think one of the key aspects is always understanding your customer, right? And using artificial intelligence to be able to create that visual, that view of that customer, regardless of the multiple platforms, right? They're on apps, they're walking in stores, they're online buying things through third parties. And how do you kind of relate that together? And then how do you kind of really enforce or engage them with what they want, right? There's so many options out there from a retail perspective. How do you get them and really add value to them? Yeah.
And Prashant, you're out there, you're experiencing this with a massive number of customers. What kind of problems are customers facing today?
This is, even though this is an AI conversation, I'm going to take a step back. Because when I used to have ability to work with customers across the globe. But then now recently in the last 2 years, I've been focusing on North and South America. So I'll focus on that part.
Sure.
The majority of the challenges that they're facing today is that you would think that in the age of AI, things are changing, but actually it is not. So there is modernization effort where they have the data silos. Their operational systems are all sitting on different databases. Their EDWs are actually having 1, 2, 3 days old data. The ability to harness the data that they already have is taking a significant amount of time. But then those which are leaders and laggards, those who are actually beginning to implement AI in a certain way, are beginning to take advantage of that. So in my opinion, the next 1 or 2 years, we are going to see a clear differentiation between the leaders and laggards in this space.
Yeah.
So it's interesting times.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Stephen, tell us how BigID plays in this space.
Yeah, so BigID helps exactly what Prashant just said, right? It's to understand your data landscape and build an inventory, if you will. But also with all the regulations that are going on around the globe, literally, it's how do you protect that information and really apply to the regulations themselves, right? So know your data, protect your data. And I think also, last thing I'll say here is you have customer expectations, right? There's awareness around privacy issues. And every time you go onto an app, you click that privacy thing, nobody ever reads it. They just expect the retailers, right, to protect. None of us are lawyers, so ChatGPT, by the way, does a great job of summarizing. But anyway, I think that there's an expectation there, right, where they don't have to read that privacy. They just want the companies to protect their information for them. So BigID helps across all of those. And then from an internal perspective, there's a security aspect of information with the cloud now can be moved very easily by anybody, right? And then even those that are not data professionals and don't have data literacy are using, generative AI these days, right? So how do you protect people from themselves? And BigID helps across all these platforms.
Yeah. So looking at some of your customers, how are they today looking at implementing AI?
Yeah, a couple of ways. So there's this thing called data subject access rights as an example, right? All that means is I, as a customer of a company, I can go in and say, show me all the information that you have about me. And then, by the way, remove it, right? With AI, the capability of bringing that information together and being able to understand all the different data sources and build that visualization and then automate that process is one way. But I think obviously personalization, right, of the experience of the customer. I think future state too, right? If you're walking into a store, they'll have all that information for you and build a profile so that they can actually offer up the products that you don't even know you want yet, things of that nature. So I think there's many, many opportunities, but it's a short podcast, so we can't listen.
Right. And so how specifically are MongoDB and BigID working together?
Oh, this is very interesting for me. I've been working with a few customers with the very much legacy data.
Yeah.
That means that they have customer information management that is sitting in a different side. And they have the transactional data that is coming in from mobile phone, mobile applications in a different silo. Point of sale systems in a different silo. Now, when we began to talk about, let's create a single view of this customer data that will allow us to be able to use the Gen AI, let me do the data evaluation now. So they're actually beginning to look at, you know what? I need to spend 6 to 8 months worth of time evaluating what data is sitting where. Why did you use BigID? It actually has the built-in processing and machine learning which actually detect to determine that PCI, PII, personally identifiable information, which entities sit having what type of data. So we are we can actually work in combination together to say, detect your data silos, detect what type of data sitting out there, and then look at your exposure. Then we can begin to take a methodical approach of beginning to centralize that data into MongoDB as a developer data platform that allows you to be able to consolidate all these multimodal data. And then, bam, you actually have an ability to shorten that cycle from dramatically 6 to 8 month period to come out with a report, then use that information to be able to do something about it versus, let's spend 6 weeks, determine everything that we need to determine. I have the catalog of every data element that is sitting where and what is it exposed to. And now we exactly know what our game plan is going to be. So there is a dramatic synergy between the two. And when I look at, AI is very nascent topic for many enterprises. So until they get to the point of able to use the data they have, it's going to be a half-hearted effort of using AI to me. Even though they may be putting all the effort and energy, it's going to be half-hearted. So, but this effort, this type of approach between MongoDB and BigID is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I see so many companies today dipping their toe in the waters of AI and prototyping something, but getting from development, prototype development to operational and production. I mean, you can't do that without looking at security, compliance. So BigID plays in that space.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you have to build trust, right? It's one thing to do stuff inside of your labs because you have the data, you can do whatever you want, and you keep it internal. When you start operationalizing things, you're starting to mess with internal processes of finance, of inventory management, of all these things that retail has to worry about. If you can utilize a tool like BigID along conjunction with Mongo to understand your data and figure out this is the stuff that we can use and this is the stuff that we can't use, and you run that through your compliance officers and your audit risk committees and things like that, and they say, okay, well, these guys know exactly what their data is, they know how to manage it, they classified it, they have good internal processes, and our risk mitigation is pretty good here. Then you build that trust. Then all of a sudden that the business owners of those processes will say, okay, let's do this. But until you prove that and build that trust, it's very, very difficult to operationalize it.
Yeah. So BigID helps in that process of gaining trust.
Indeed.
How is BigID using MongoDB behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, they're a strategic partner of ours for sure. And in the back end of BigID is Monk.
Yeah.
Right? So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, fantastic. So relatively short segment, but I want you to put your future seeking hat on and share with us how you see software development changing in the future.
Well, we saw some of that today from Mongo, right? I think I think understanding and helping how to accelerate writing code, right? Nobody wants to troubleshoot their own code, and if you can get to the point where you're getting the code to 80 or 90% and then putting in that secret sauce, that's a huge valuation. I think that the second piece is just understanding and the data literacy landscape, right? From a data literacy of how to use generative AI and the importance of prompt engineering and things of that nature are very critical. So I think AI is going to help AI itself.
For sure. How about you, Prashant?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I agree with Stephen on this one. In terms of the data availability and then making now, I'm a data professional. I love data. And then to me, the lifeblood of an enterprise is data. So the development, the way it's going to change is that availability, how quickly you can make this data available to the right teams, the right consumers and right applications. So it's all about defining your use case and the data associated with this. Absolutely most important. And then subsequently, what technology that I can use to be able to get to that feature level that my users want. So it's going to be, to me, the entire development process is going to go on its head down. It's going to turn on its head. It's going to be very interesting to see that now everybody will begin to think from the data perspective and say that in order for me to provide this feature, I can create a killer feature, but I don't have any data to work with it. Or it's not real time, or it's about 70 hours old, and it has all these exposures to the security. It's going to be useless.
Yeah.
So this combination is going to be very interesting to see that everyone will begin to get that data literacy that they really need in the first place, and look at, okay, now I have all this data. I need to make sure it is available to me to provide what I need. The speed of availability of the data with the Gen AI is going to be so dramatically different. Those who begin to work on that is going to be the leaders. Those who can't recognize that until too late is going to be the laggards.
Yeah.
So as simple as that.
Yeah, great insights. I want to thank you both for joining me today. So Prashant, Stephen, where can folks get more information about BigID?
Yeah, so certainly bigid.com, right?
There you go. Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks very much.